Oh, I'll go ahead and enter. Uh, Adam Park is going to be our workshop leader today. He's brought us a wonderful topic about teaching phonics in a very unique way that he's developed. And so, without further ado, Adam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. How are you doing today? Good? Nod for good, shake your head for still tired. I'm still a little tired, but I'm doing good. All right, everyone doing well. All right, so today I'd actually like to start off with some quotes I got really inspired to include this morning. So this will be a first time seeing, even for the people who did the dry run of this with me. So just give me a second while I figure out my how to present something full screen and hit the screen share button at the same time. All right, there we go. So can you see that? Is that good? All right, so perfection is achieved not when there is nothing left to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. So I think a lot of the time as teachers and with the curriculum that's kind of government mandated, it can feel like we are piling thing upon thing upon thing, and it gets really complicated and overwhelming. The goal of the system that I am going to introduce today is essentially to provide you with something that's simple, that's correct, and consistent. It's universal. And it's basically something that you can use for literally everything to do with English, written and spoken, and it's very simple and straightforward. So I really like this quote. I see it come up from time to time. The version that Americans are more familiar with, I'm Canadian, but we hear it too, is KISS, which is keep it simple, stupid. And this was an acronym that the US Navy apparently used in 1960, which I didn't know until I looked it up this morning. But the idea is just that more difficult, more complicated things can often be very mentally heavy and take up a lot of resources. And you know, I did a little thing where I looked at IQ by profession, and the average teacher has an IQ about 115, I think it was. The problem with this is that sometimes the perspective that we have as teachers is that what's easy for us, or what we understand easily, for someone with a 90 IQ, which there are tons of people, you know, like maybe 20%, I don't know exactly how the distribution is, but maybe 20% or 25% of people have an IQ in that range. For them, it might be incredibly difficult. And that's why I think it's good. And that's why the military also has this model, right? It's not a bunch of people with master's degrees necessarily working as soldiers or, you know, on the ship or whatever. So this is why this is a design principle that the Navy used as well. So that's kind of the goal that I'm going for today. And just a little personal thought about this is I believe that about 90% practice and 10% theory is good. So today I'm going to be showing you a lot of the practice of how things actually work. I just have a couple more quotes to go here that I think kind of emphasize the direction I want to go with this. This is apparently a quote from an American football coach, but I associate it with my high school drama teacher. And it's that practice does not make perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. And what this means is that often I think we can get ritualized about how we do practice. So it becomes like a ritual that we're doing for the sake of it, but we're maybe not fully engaged, or we're not analyzing, or we're not trying to do what we're practicing exactly right. So the idea of this quote is essentially, you know, maybe you're not going to quite attain perfection, but if you want to be really good at something, you need to be the practice that you need to be doing needs to be high quality. So maybe the first time you do something and you're doing the sounds with the children or whatever, you're not expecting it to be perfect, but you know, you aim for a little higher than where they're at. Then when they get here, the next time you aim a little higher and bring them here and here and here. You don't just keep repeating at this level and settling for all the little mistakes. But when you're down here, you don't split hairs over tiny little imperfections. But you slowly raise the standard of practice. That's kind of what I've been aiming to do. So I think my point with this is, as you're doing the system, which is meant to be consistent, you also have to be paying a lot of attention to the detail of doing it correctly. And the last quote here, I think, is also one that a lot of people can relate to. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. And I think this is really the pinnacle, the epitome of what I'm trying to get at here today. Um, the whole point of this system is not to be complicated. It's not to be super fancy, and it's not to teach a whole bunch of things all at once. It's to give a consistent system that you practice over and over again and can be used for literally everything. And you just get better at it by doing it over and over again. It's just like my philosophy with teaching English is that English is a lot more like a sport, a lot more like arts and crafts, a lot more like um, you know, even fine arts. I think it's more a creative endeavor, and I think above all, it's something that you need to practice. You know, people who do sports and whatnot, or say a boxer, you know, they don't say, "Oh, I got a pretty good jab. I don't need to practice this anymore." They practice it every single day. And that's just how these fundamentals should be in English. And I've got some really easy ways to help integrate it into the classroom for people who obviously are concerned about time and whatnot, and ways to use it seamlessly with all of the things that you're going to be doing already. So without further ado, I'm actually going to get on to showing you how I do the warm-up. For the sake, I know we have a lot of JTEs here today, so for the sake of the JTEs, I'm going to try to really clearly enunciate the words and show you how I teach them, which is also going to be useful for the ALTs as well. The one key thing I want people to pay attention to here is you may have heard the old adage that people can't pick up language or correct pronunciation after a certain age. The thing to keep in mind with research is very general, and it's not necessarily like focused on doing things a particular way. So what it means is that when they say that, what they're trying to say basically is that the way we currently do things, people can't do this. And I tend to agree. I think just kind of going at it willy-nilly, trying to read stuff and just pick up on it automatically, I think it is very difficult past a certain age. That's why my approach is going to be a highly visually oriented approach. Many people have a very good sense, they use their eyes. Humans naturally use their eyes a lot. And then people, how good they are at picking up on sounds, it varies a lot. Some people, you know, they say, oh, I'm tone deaf, or I can't hear the difference between this and this. So to compensate for the fact that a lot of people don't have the best, you know, the most picky auditory, I've made this approach very visually oriented. So it's about telling the kids or the students or whatever, literally how to move their mouth, how to move their tongue, where the feeling should be. And we've broken things down into their simplest parts. So each individual basic English sound, we're not even starting with words, we're just using each individual sound, and then we're going to perfect each individual sound, and then we're going to start combining them into words. So without further ado, I'm going to actually start with that. I've got my little cards here that I'm not going to show you. So this is extremely important. I will show you the written letters that correlate with these cards next. But it's extremely important that when you're starting this, you do not use the cards. You want your students to focus on your mouth. And I tell them, please look at my mouth and copy what I'm doing. And I give them hints about how things should be feeling and so on. So it's very important that when you first start doing this, or if the students are really having trouble with a particular sound, you take the cards away if you were using them that show the letters, and to just focus only on the pronunciation. Okay, so I'm gonna start. And I like to use my hand actually to show what the mouth is doing because I can kind of exaggerate it more. And you'll also notice that with certain letters, I make them intentionally longer or shorter based on what the mistakes I expect the students to make are. So one of the most infamous examples, you'll see how I do L and R and how I make them sound very distinct because they're visually very distinct and I exaggerate what makes them different. Okay, so we're gonna start here. First sound is B, B. So it's a very staccato sound. It's a very fast sound. Sometimes if students are doing something weird with that, I go B, 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 just to emphasize that it's not B, it's B. It's a very fast B, right? So you're just kind of pushing the air out and the tension should be on the lips. B. It's almost kind of like like almost a whip sound. The next one is D. Now I want you to watch my tongue on this sound. D. So to help the students, because they can't necessarily like X-ray see inside my mouth, I use my hand to indicate what my tongue is doing. So I go D, D. So that helps them to really distinguish between the B and the D sound, because you don't use your tongue with the B sound. Okay, the next one, this one I find is very important to make the students do the position on their mouths first and not to make the sound first, because one of the problems that you'll find almost universally with tricky sounds is people will pick the closest analog, the closest similar sound to what they already know. And so of course the problem with that is you'll often get like right, for this one, or whatever, however you do that in Japanese. And it's very different in the mouth shape from this sound. So what you do to get them to do it right is you go like this. You go, I always say like kuchi o taberu, like, right? So I joke around a bit. That's just kind of my style, but you can do it however you want. But you want to have the teeth on the lip, and you literally tell them to do that. And then you look around the room and make sure everyone's doing it. And then you go, right? And you go, right? So one of the other things I say is just like cookie dake, like only air. So there's no vibration or anything. So for that sound. Okay, next one. I point here, I go, g, g, g. And if you get the students to look here, they can see there, they'll be, oh, sugoi, because they'll be like, you know, you don't move your down here as much with Japanese. So they'll be like, whoa, that's crazy. So I say like, kimochi wa koko, you know, the feeling is down here. G, g. And again, most common mistake they'll say is gu. One of my tricks I use is I just say gu no hanbun, gu, and then they'll get it almost straight away. I find that a lot of these consonant sounds, the students can pick up pretty quickly, like grade 3 students, grade 3rd year junior high, everyone can get it pretty quickly. So they're not too bad. This one is and again, this is really just the only mistake people make is they go ha or whatever, which you can fix really quickly. One of the things I use maybe jokingly when I'm introducing with class, I show myself running and I go ha, 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 because it's exactly that sound. We all know what it is like to be out of breath. So that's a very easily analog for them to understand. Next sound is j, j. This one, you are doing this with your tongue a little. You're going j, j, kind of like d a bit. I also like to emphasize it's a very, like, it feels like a pointed sound. J, j. So you want it to be very rapid. Next one, again, these are all pretty easy for them. K, k. I've never had a student have problems with this sound for whatever reason. It's really easy. Okay, next one. This one's important. I say tongue up here, touching the back of your teeth, okay? And if you're an ALT like me who has like N6 Japanese, I'm like, shita, ue, ha, and I point inside my mouth. So even if you're really bad at Japanese like I am, you can give them the general idea, learn like 5 words to do with your teeth and your tongue and your lips and whatnot. And so it's very important. This one is super, super important to do 2 things. One, get them to do the position before the sound, or you'll get that, right? Number 2, it's important to do it as a long sound because it makes them incapable of going that. Because you can't go that because that looks nothing like the sound. So watch what I do. Say, okay, get your tongue there. And you do the whole, you try not to teach to a T. You make sure that the kids in the corners, everyone can see it because it's very specific. And then you go, and this is a specific thing for helping Japanese students because you can't go da. They can't go like because then they're doing an sound. So it kind of tricks them into having to do it correctly. So we go, and it sort of emphasizes the softness of the letter L, which obviously is what I'm doing. Okay, next, I like to say this is a mouth feeling sound. Kuchi no kimochi, right here, okay? So you want to go, you want the feeling, or I say vibration, you want the vibration to be here. For this one. Now the next one I like to say is a nose sound, and your tongue needs to go up and your mouth is open, because to Japanese people these 2 sound kind of similar, but the position's very different on the mouth. This one is hana no kimochi. And you can see visually on my mouth, it's really different from the letter M. And the feeling is kind of here, it's like nasally. It's a because if you don't do this, you'll just get that sound from everyone. So that's why I'm very particular about these two sounds. And when they do mix them up, I just write each on the chalkboard, and then I make the sound and I tell them, look at my mouth. Here's the hint is here, because sometimes they'll get caught up in whatever they're doing, the work or whatever. And then I say, it's different, right? 100% different. They're like, okay, okay. And then they start looking at the mouth to kind of discern what the sound is, and then they start making it better themselves. Okay, the next one is also important. I do this sort of like weird, mysterious intro to this sound. I just go like this. Okay. And then I sometimes say shita ga ue. So you want to put your tongue up. So what the feeling with this sound is like you've got something in here and you're going to shoot it out like a kamehameha or something like that. I sometimes use that. That gets a few laughs. But there's really vibration down here, and the tongue is up, and then you're going, right? And now, visually speaking, what I just did looks nothing like completely 100% different. So when you really exaggerate those visuals and you exaggerate the natural sound, it helps people who aren't familiar with the sounds to make them better. The next one, there's very subtle mistakes with this one. Usually you'll get sort of like the Japanese tsu without the u or something. This one, what I like to do is use the analog of music. So I go so this really emphasizes that it's an extremely fast sound, and the sound is longer. So if you start doing the, it's really hard to do that fast. So it kind of can't do it that fast. And the visual hint for this one is just a, so the tongue is just doing this little, and you just tell them super fast. The key for this one is do it really super fast. Okay, next one's super easy. No one has troubles with, not no one, but some kids do, but this is it. Sometimes I use my fingers to kind of indicate what's going on with the mouth spacing. Doubtlessly, there'll be a couple kids going shh and stuff. So you say, the trick I use is put your teeth together. It's really hard to make a shh sound like this. It makes them more able to do. Most native speakers, we leave a tiny little space when we do. It's very, very small though. And you can still make it with your teeth completely clenched. So the key with the S sound is that the teeth are tighter together, and it's that kind of feeling. Next one, this is a no vibration sound. Biggest problem you'll have is people trying to do papi pupe po type stuff, adding the vowel sound. So you go, again, I use this to really emphasize it's a like that with your mouth. Okay, next one. This one's really important. Now you can kind of evoke memories of the F sound that we did earlier, or you can just kind of tell them to do it again. Do this, right? And now you say you have to vibrate here. And I even say it's kind of like it should tickle a little. It should be going like this. Okay, so like this. Everyone sees it. The other one I like to say is Yankee no okiniri mono, and I go. And some of the kids, like if they're like elementary kids, they'll all be like, yeah, and they'll super love it. Even not the elementary kids sometimes just get in on it because it's kind of funny. Depends on your personality again, but the key with this one is because Japanese people will most often mix up b and v. So the reason you remember way back to the first sound b is very fast. I want to really emphasize it's super fast. And then v, I want to emphasize that it vibrates and that it's very different from b. So we're emphasizing the thing about the sound that is the most different, which is v has a vibration. So and you can vibrate forever, but you can't make the b sound forever. What are you going to do? B, you know, that sounds nothing similar at all. So that helps to really differentiate the two. V, and that's sort of my goofy face that goes along with it. Okay, the next one, again, most common problem, you'll get like a wo or something like that. Adding the vowel sounds, you just tell them to do it faster. What, what, what. Maybe a native speaker might more naturally want to go what, but with this one, we're really trying to emphasize that there shouldn't be like a vowel-y sound like a wa or a wo or whatever that follows. So we go what, what, what. I do the rapid thing, you know, it's kind of fun and the kids laugh and stuff, but I also do that because I want to emphasize that you have to, it's a really staccato or really fast kind of sound. Okay, next one, the feeling's a little here. Yit, yit, yeah, 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 yeah. Very similar to w, and that's the only thing you have to watch out for them is kind of tacking on those vowel sounds afterwards. These ones people mostly don't have a big problem with. And the next one, zzz. Zzz. Now, the actual sound itself, most Japanese people don't have problems with, but you get them trying to do that subtle DZU thing, the z, z. And what I want to emphasize with this one is you start here, and it's always the same. I'm like, iya ka, yeah, well, like, ima kara en made itsumo onaji. So I just want to say, like, it's from now until eternity. It's all the same. It's not a z where the sound has like a this. It's always the same sound. It's zzz. It's the same when I start and the same when I end, and you can just do it forever. So that's how I help them with this one. The next one, I do this. Shh, shh, shh. So this is similar to the S sound, but the space is like this. I use my fingers to indicate the space that they should be making with their mouth, and most people just naturally pick up on what I mean by that, but you can explain it if you want to. Okay, the next one, shita o taberu, is what I say to get the kids kind of on board with this. I find that the reason that half my students don't do this sound properly is because like, hazakashi, and they're all embarrassed because like, oh, sticking your tongue out is so crazy. So I say shita o taberu just to like really go over the top, and then they're like, well, I'm not going to eat my tongue, but I guess I'll just kind of go like this to make you happy. And it actually seems to work. I had more trouble with students who wouldn't do it until I started saying that when I introduce it, because it's kind of like, if something's going to feel a little silly, just make it really silly, and then you can bargain them back down to a little silly, no problem. That's kind of my strategy anyway. Okay, so I just go shita o taberu, and they go, eh? And I go, hontoni, and I go, first, and then we go. Now you'll notice that I breathe in and breathe out and exaggerate it, and that's because I want to emphasize that it's just an air only sound. It's just. Okay, next one. I say about this, and I say it's kind of like a combination of like z and ch, right? This is zh, zh. And you can emphasize the biggest thing people will want to do with the sound is go j, j. So you emphasize that it's long and that the middle part of the sound is kind of different. It's j, and the space here is like this, right? J, j. And this is probably the least common sound you'll use, I find. It's like Asia and massage and so on. Okay, next one. This one's really easy, I find. So it's sort of that middle size space, and that one don't have many problems with it. Next one, the feeling is right here, you want to tell them, and that your tongue should really go up and kind of back like this. And then sometimes I'll say like sing, sing. And the biggest mistake you get here is they go singu, singu, or g, g, g. So you really want to emphasize it's a nya, 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 sing, nya. And they can get that with a little prompting. It's just that they have to become conscious that it's not a g, that it's a nya sort of sound. But they can get that one pretty easily. Okay, next one. I say, okay, mo ikai shita o taberu. Shindo version. So I like to say, bite your tongue again, eat your tongue again, and this time with vibration, right? So it's this. And I say right here on your tongue, it should tickle. Your teeth should be moving, and your tongue should feel like, ooh, that feels strange, right? If you've never done it before, I'm sure it does. And that one takes a little practice, but again, you just emphasize the vibration aspect of it. And that this one actually has voice, and the feeling is kind of about right there. Okay, next one is, this one I like to say is like the smiling sound. We're on to the vowel sounds now. So this one is the ah, 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 ah. So I even extend it to show what it's like shorter or longer. And this one's like, you're kind of doing this to exaggerate the sound. Next one, eh, eh, eh. So this one's kind of like, it feels like your mouth is going back like this a little bit. It's eh, eh. You know, ah is more of a smile, and this is more of a eh, eh, kind of straight but back. There's still tension here. Okay, next, it, it. So kind of like ah, it is sort of a smiley kind of sound. It, it. Next, ah, ah, ah. Now I'm not using the letters yet, but it looks like a circle, so it's really easy to remember because that's what an O looks like, right? Ah, ah, ah. Next, this is the one where your mouth remains in the most normal position. I always tell the students, futsu, futsu, it looks normal. Okay, so, uh, uh, uh. It's a very normal, you're not moving your mouth much sound. And this is one that's really helpful for Japanese people because individually, sometimes they can recreate these sounds, but then hearing them and then differentiating becomes difficult. So the ah is a very ah sound, and is a very sound. So when you look at the shape of the mouth, you can really tell the difference between the two, and you can help coach them to make the correct sounds using that technique. The next one are the same sorts of sounds, but the longer version. A, E, I, O, U. These are all very simple sounds. They're just the names of the letters. They're the same. So this is really easy. Next sound is, my letters got backwards here. Uh. Now that's the sound like book, right? So I like to jokingly go like, and I give a really vacant expression on my face, and then I kind of go like this, and then they kind of think it's the zombie sound, and they all get a big kick out of that. I find this one's one of the more difficult vowel sounds because it sounds a little like which is a little different from and you just have to practice these to get good at them. Next one is oi, oi. Kids have zero problems with this, and I had a class of grade 6 last year who every time we did that sound would yell it so loud that the entire school heard it. Just an excuse to say oi really loudly. Okay, next. Ooh, ooh. No problems with this sound. They catch on to it almost instantly. Next one, ow, ow. A big to small sound. No problems with this one, almost instantly. Okay, now for the challenge ones. All right. These are the R-controlled vowel sounds. They're sometimes a little tricky, but I figured out a trick to help teach them. So what's going on with these is very much inside your mouth. So I want you to use your hand to help instruct people how to move for these. Okay, first is or. So what I'm doing is I'm moving my hand to show what my tongue is doing. So it's kind of like pulling the air in or something to change the sound it's going. And then I like to tell them for all these 5 sounds, the feeling should be heavily down here. Or, and if you're a guy, like you can say, watch my Adam's apple, or you can still see the neck moving no matter what. But the sound is going on down here, but the tongue up here is going or, and I find instructing them to look at the tongue movement really helps a lot towards getting the correct sound with that, because you get a lot of oh, but you want or for this sound. Okay, next, ear. Again, the same principles, the same idea for this one. Next is R. And with this sound, you can actually see my tongue doing it a little more. Some of them, it's a little harder too. Air. And then for the very last sound, this one's actually the one I have the most trouble with. But what I found is you want to get the tongue not just up from the start. It's not doing this thing. You actually want it to curl a little towards the back. So it's almost like kind of going back like this a little. And this one, er, and your tongue is actually curled and the feeling is really deep. It's right down here. Sometimes I evoke imagery of like the manly sound, or like the you know, like kind of an angry dog or something, like or something like that. And sometimes that helps them to kind of get the idea. That's one of the trickier ones. So I'm going to go over these really quickly with the letter sounds attached to them, but I'm going to just open up for questions, or if, well, actually, no, it's going to be hard to be like, yeah, that one that sounded like a, and then typing it. Can you do that again? So I'm going to do it with the letter cards, and then you can remember the letters, right? Right. And then if you want me to do something again or explain how to do something again, just ask me. But I'm going to go through this faster, just because, you know, we're about halfway through right now, so I kind of want to get you know, moving on to the next stuff. So with that type of warm up, I go through it once and I work on some of the most egregious problem sounds. The first time I do it more in detail, so it maybe takes about 15 minutes or so, I would say, with the average class. Depends a bit. Some are quicker. Like I find the older kids maybe a little can adjust to the visual stuff faster. But then it becomes progressively faster after that. It's up to you, but I'd say after doing it maybe a few times with just the audio to really get them doing that, you can introduce the letters that you want to associate with it. And I have a printout for these that I'll be sharing after today's class. So I think they've actually already been sent with emails. Maybe PA Nagasaki can clarify if this has already been sent out by email or not. I'll watch the chat. Okay, so let's just do these quickly now. B, b, d, d. Now notice I'm keeping the cards. You can do it here just because of the camera, I'm not. Here or here, keep your mouth close to the cards. This is ideal. It helps the students to still focus on making the correct visual sounds while getting the association. G, g, h, h, j, j. So usually the way I do it is I go j, and then the students go j. And then if it's not satisfactory, maybe I'll do it again. Otherwise, I'll just do it once. The next step with this, which I might as well just say right now, is once the students are familiar with it, and this is like elementary kids can do it, junior high kids can, everyone can do it. Once they've done it a few times, you go like this. First you do it, then I do it, then you do it again. Because rarely will 100% of students do it perfectly the first time. So you always do it a second time, so that, or once, so that they can kind of correct themselves, get the sound a little better. So they'll go, yeah, and then they'll go, j, and then they'll do it again, and it'll usually be a little better, but it helps them to, again, get that in their own heads and practice actually doing it without just copying the sounds. K, k, l, mm, mm, r, r, t, t, s, s, v, v, what, what, yep, yep, zzz, shh, j, j, ch, ch, ng, ng, v, v, a, a, e, 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 I, I, a, 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 E, I, O, U, uh, uh, oi, ooh, ow, or, ear, R, air, So that becomes a like 1-minute warm up that I do at the start of every single class. And I find that it's actually really good because it gets the students, you know, when you're doing something in another language, it's not just like, I don't know, sometimes when you're not in a math mode or you're not thinking about math and you have to do math all of a sudden, it's kind of, you have to think about it for a bit. I think language is even a bigger like gear to shift. You're like, oh, right. So this warm up helps to kind of kick students into this English mode, is something that they become very confident in and they can do really easily, and it just becomes natural. It gets them in the correct mode. So it has that benefit of, even if you've done it a million times, it sort of warms them up and they can do it like bam, 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 1-2 minutes, no problem. Even like the youngest kids, no worries at all. So I'm going to pause here for questions, or if you want me to clarify the strategy for any sounds, or like if you have a problem pair where they mix them up all the time that you think I haven't covered enough, please feel free to ask now. I'll just take a 15-20-second break here, let you think if you have any questions. Oh, we got some questions. Okay, good. In these times where students and teachers wear masks, what advice? Yeah. I have it kicking around here. Yeah, really, as the students, it's a little more annoying to see if they're doing it right, but you can get the general idea for if they're doing it correctly just by the sounds. Like, you'll get the most egregious mistakes, and anything that's like an improvement over katakana Japanese pronunciation is welcome, right? So you might not get it perfect right now. As the teacher, you can compensate by doing this thing and the stuff that I'm doing with the tongue. If you have to use a mask, I highly recommend this. Get one of these, or even if you want the full face shield, you'd be really hardcore. I use this for all of my English classes, highly recommended. I think it makes a big difference for the teacher to do it. I think for the students, it's like a 10 or 20% difference. I feel like it's a little more annoying. It's a little harder to catch the student, that one guy in the corner who's cheating and not doing it, but mostly it's actually surprisingly not bad. And that was from Beth. From Anna, he says, but do you ever get to yeah. So for Anna, we are getting on to that next. So basically, going back to that practicing one kick 10,000 times, the whole point of this is to get them really to simplify it down to its most basic form. So first is just the sound, and then now that we're good at just the sound, we're the sound plus the letter. And then they get that association built up. Then once we've done that for a while, and you can kind of gauge it based on how the students are doing, they should be getting like 80% or so of it without too much of a problem. Then we can move on to the next step. I am going to give one alternate way to introduce this, especially useful for elementary teachers. If you're doing the alphabet unit right now, now is the perfect time. So what I do is I explain to my students very briefly that, in Japanese, I'm like, what's this? And they're like, cat. I remember, right? I'm like, it's always cat, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So in English, it's not like that. We have 44 or 43 sounds, or I'm not, by the way, disclaimer, I'm not like, I didn't study linguistics or found on the internet, and a bit of stuff I changed myself because I didn't like how it was. I try to just make it as simple as possible, the letter and sounds as close to like what's written as possible. And then I say, okay, but in English, say we have this letter, right? It can make now, here's the thing that I suggest to avoid confusing students. And my printout cards I was using for the warm-up, I made a really long time ago, so they don't follow this, but I actually advise doing this. Whenever you're using the phonics letters, which are the true pronunciation, always use red. And that just prevents the kids from getting confused between what the phonics letters and the spelling is. So this is the k, but then we also have the ch. And then even sometimes we have the s sound. But I said, don't worry about it. Today, we're only going to practice the most popular sound for each letter, because we're learning the ABCs and how to associate the sounds. And there's even in the grade 4 textbook like apple, which is kind of supportive along the lines of this. With this warm-up, you'll cover about 23 of the sounds, and they're the most common ones because X is just a combination of KS, and then K, C, and Q are all the same sound. So you actually only cover about 23. But to this end, we just go like this. I go A, or if it's third grade, because they only know capital letters, and I always forget to do this, A, and then we go b, b, k, k, c, d, 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 e, 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 f, f, f. And what I do here is like, wait, mate, mate, b, b, b. I go d, 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 f. And I'm like, wow, a lot of these are really similar. The sound they make and the letter's name are almost the same. So I say to my students, I say, you can almost easily, naturally remember all, like half of these with no practice because the sound is super similar. And then of course, later on when you introduce like the long vowel sounds like A, E, I, O, those are also really easy for them to pick up because they know the names of the letters. So that's a really good way to integrate it at, I would say, the really practical earlier phases for kids, whereas the other thing introduces some of the more complex compounding sounds. What I usually go on to from this, which I'm going to cover next, is starting with 3-letter words. And we're going to use 3-letter words today because 3-letter words are very consistent. They often, almost always, there's a couple weird ones like egg where there's 2 G's, but they are very consistent and basically look like they sound. Okay, now I'm going to read some questions because I've seen them just piling in here. Okay. Now let's see, how do you progress? It seems like you did the sound prior to pairing them with letters. How long do you practice the sound? So from Mike A, how long do I practice the sound before pairing it with the letters? You know, I've had classes where I introduced them in the same class. I've had times where I took maybe a little, like a couple times too. I usually do it fairly quickly, but I just like to do that for sure initial one time without the letters at all where they can really focus on your mouth. And then periodically to work on problem sounds. Because like I would actually say that the Japanese kids get half of these with no problems and they'll do them right or almost right every single time. Like especially the really simple consonant sound like, you know, and b and stuff. They usually get those really good quite quickly because all they have to do is not go b. They just go b instead, and it's pretty close to what they already know. So yeah, I maybe only do it a couple times, but it's, you judge it on a case by case basis. It's based on, I've done this a lot, so I feel like I can coax them into doing the right thing fairly quickly at this point. But maybe if you're starting and you're not comfortable with it yet yourself, especially if maybe you're a JTE or you're not sure to how to get your ALT to do it, you know, take your time, don't rush. It's better to have a solid foundation that they feel confident in, and then you take the next step. Don't rush it. There's no reason to rush it. You can just keep doing it as a sound warm up if you need to for a while. If you feel good about the letters, start bringing those in. And then the next thing we go on to is like 3-letter words and whatnot. Okay, so let's see. Do you ever have trouble with JT who introduces phonics incorrectly and cannot change or adapt to your instruction? I have JT who makes phonics G. I think that it's kind of a choose your battles thing when you're with junior high or JTEs that maybe aren't receptive. But I think that, you know, I have a video as well where I do this that was like on Omura cable TV. I had a TV show for a few months, and because we did like a quarantine English thing, and then I just kept doing it after everyone else stopped because I'm crazy that way. Like, I want to do this more, it's fun. So I'm going to link to that. Since we're talking about it, I might as well do it now. Don't distribute this like super publicly, like post it on Facebook or anything, but you can see this YouTube video, and it's a, you can also use this video. I don't mind if you do, to show your JTE or whatever. I think that sometimes if it's coming, I don't want to say like I'm an authority on this, but if it's coming from a more official or source, or that it's been used for a while, because I've been using this in the classroom for over a year now, that might help loosen their feelings about it. Because I think it's kind of one of those things where with Japanese, it's very clear what the sound should be. And with English, unless you're into that weird IPA sign stuff, and I've heard some teachers be like, I learned that in university and it was useless and I don't remember it. And this is basically like an easy fit replacement for that. So that's kind of what I'm aiming to do here. I think it's important to be diplomatic and kind of work at it gradually. But I think if you're persistent, or you provide them some materials that make it look more official or whatever, that can help. Definitely, I find that it's easier getting elementary teachers on board with this, as it is with a lot of things. But, you know, if your JTEs are somewhat open-minded or a little bit I think that they'll see the value in this. Okay, so thank you, Adam. Similar to, do you negotiate with teachers? Kind of English. Yeah, I think that the best thing you can do is like show them. I've got some materials. Oh shoot. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that YouTube link did get put up there. I think showing them some of these materials and maybe this video or maybe the one I linked in, or the Nagasaki PA relayed for me there, that can help. I think that there's a certain extent to which I can't help you too much if someone really doesn't want to listen to you. That's a whole different workshop, like how to get along with your coworkers or something. Yeah, I think that you have to just kind of do your best, and maybe showing them this system. And Nagasaki PA, if you're listening, I just had a question. I wasn't sure if the files, did anyone get files sent out with an email for this? I have a bunch of files that I had. No, you didn't. Okay, so I have a bunch of files that I was going to use for this, then I'm running out of time and I don't think I'll be able to use all of them. But basically, I think we were going to do maybe like a mailing list or something. If anyone's interested, you could private message me your email at the end of this session. And then I will send out to everyone the materials I have. Oh, okay, Nagasaki PA is saying not yet, but we will make it available after. Okay, great. So those sheets will be sent out, I think, to everyone who participated here today. And that basically shows, it's an easier way of seeing how to use it. Okay, with the W sound specifically, yeah, with the W sound. So the thing I use for W is just the really staccato approach. So I go what, very pointed, and then I go whoa, 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 and that helps to emphasize. It's hard to go whoa, 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 because it's a longer sound. So that really emphasizes that it's. Oh, okay, so there's a link down there, English, phonics, and pronunciation. So anyone can click on that and you can look at the materials that I've included for today. Okay, sometimes with the full words, you'll find that once you practice the individual sounds, you can do this sort of thing. You can have this, right? We have wolf. Oh, that looks really bad. Being lazy with how I'm writing today. We have wolf. And what I like to do, because we don't say wolf, we say wolf. So down here, I'll just write. And then what we do is we do the sounds individually. I go w, Now, once you practice the sounds individually, this will come more naturally. So you do one at a time, and then you go w, f, wolf, wolf, like that. And let's see, we have not too much time left. I'm going to try to answer one more thing. Again, with L and R, I just really try to focus on what's different about them. So R, I go the R, and then L, the L, and then V, focus on the vibration, make it longer, V, and B, make it staccato, B. So the ones that can be long, make them excessively long and really emphasize that. And the ones that are short that are similar, make them super short. And then it makes the difference seem bigger between the two. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next thing here. Okay, I'm going to do the screen share thing again. We're just probably going to get to the 3-letter words today. I wanted to get a little further, but this is pretty close. Oh, okay, what am I doing here? All right, share screen. Here we go. And there we are. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see this. Okay, so can you see my mouse cursor? Someone nod. Can you see my mouse cursor moving around? Okay, perfect. That makes it easy. So what I do, and this works, I did this with 3rd-year junior high students, 3rd-year elementary students. Everyone can do it once you've done what I've already done. All I tell them at the start is that the most likely k sound is C. I just give them that free, right? So what I'll do here is I'll go, I won't even say the word. I'll just go, k, 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 and then I ask them to guess the letter and write in pencil, obviously, right? And then I go, ah, ah. Actually, after this one, I go, k, k, k. And then I say, okay, what is it? And if they don't say, I just write it for free. It depends on how they're feeling. I go next, ah, ah, ah. And with all the warm-up hints and whatnot, I go back to those. I say, ah, ah, if they don't get it. I'm like, it's like a big smile, ah, ah. And they go, oh, okay. And I go, t, t, t. And I even give them the little hints with this. And then they write cat. Depending on the enthusiasm level of the class, some of them immediately get into it. Some of them are like, and I just do it for free the first time, and I'll just write it down. I'll go, and then together we go, k, 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 ah, 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 t, 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 cat, cat. The next one, I'll go, ah, and then I'll get them to say the letter. We just do one letter at a time at the start, and then they see if they get it right or not. And if they're struggling, I just write it. I just give it to them for free. The next one, ah, ah, ah. If they don't get it, I skip this one. And the next one I go, and I point at my lips because it's the lip sound, And they might get that. And then I go, wait, this one, ah, ah, k, k, ah, ah. And I'm like, it's the same, isn't it? And they go, oh, yeah, it's the same. So even like the lowest level kid in the class will be like, oh, it is the same. And then they'll write it down. And this isn't about quizzing them. It's not about testing them. It's about practicing. So you're not trying to trick them or anything. You're not trying to see if they were paying attention. You're trying to get them to practice. So you want to be really nice and give them lots of hints, but you want them to you give them 80% and you get them to fill in the 20%. Then you give them 70% and they fill in the 30. And next thing you know, they're doing it all completely by themselves. And these things are really cool because you can, after you finish filling them all out, they take actually a decent amount of time, even with like junior high students, they were having a little trouble with and because to Japanese people, like bass and bass is how you say bus and bath, even though they're completely different words, right? So they kind of associate both as being the sound, but you just emphasize is a big smile and has very little movement. And again, you can look at this video again for a lot of the tips I gave about different sounds and how they differentiate. And then you just emphasize what's different about those sounds. I have just a few minutes left, so I'm going to share one more thing here quickly. And this is the next level that I've been just kind of moving on to now with some of my classes. Where are we here? There we go. So this is moving on to slightly more complex words, 4 and 5 letter words. So what I do here is, this is where English starts getting weird and uses a lot of combinations to make different sounds. So what I do is I just go k, 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 and they say C, because at this point, if they've done all, I have like 4 sheets for the 3-letter words, they actually get really good at it and they get them all almost perfectly. I go L, and they go, oh, L, and then I go E, and I'm like, then I say Hatsuon no moji. What is it? And now with the warm-up sheets, this is the E with the little line over top of it. And so I get them to write that in red to symbolize that the combination of EA is the E sound. And they go, and then they go, And then the way I do this, k, 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 E, 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 clean, clean. And we do it so that we all say it at the same time. And that's how we sound out every single word. This one, again, this one would be the I with the hat and then just the M sound, this combination of 3. I think that it's good to not be too hard on them with these more complex ones. Don't make them memorize what a bunch of different combinations mean and stuff. Just get them familiar with decoding which combinations are which. And then when you have here, and then you have here, instead of giving them this one for free, be like, oh, look up here. What was the pronunciation symbol for this one? We already did this sound. And just through practice, just like a native speaker, they'll start to become familiar with what combinations of letters make what special sounds. Or like with cook and moon, they'll at least know that it's one of 2 things. But they just get to know that with experience over time. You can kind of point out, oh, remember on the pronunciation cards, this is the sound right here. So I think I'm actually pretty much out of time, aren't I? That's just so sad. I wish I had more. But I really wanted to go through those sounds as thoroughly as possible so that you could all kind of, play them back at any time. I am totally okay with receiving anyone's questions, or if anyone wants support, or even to do like a video chat or something with me, help JTEs, ALTs. I'm really like super extra. I used to organize like a 2,000 person volunteer event in Canada in my spare time for fun. So when I say that I'm willing to help you or support you, I'm not doing the Japanese polite thing where I just have to say that. I really mean that. So you can, I'm gonna send this to everyone. Um, you can email me at this is my main email address and ask me any questions you have. I'm willing to do Skype chats or anything to help you out with this. There is only so much that I can do in 1 hour, and I hope I've given you the basics and an idea for how to get started with this. I really wish at this point I wish I had like 2 hours or just go write a thesis or something, but I'm that's all I can cover today, everyone. So thanks everyone for coming, and it was really enjoyable. Please do send me questions if you have them to that email address down there, and make sure to check out that link to the English phonics and pronunciation. There are a lot of worksheets that I half like downloaded from free places on the internet and half just kind of like edited to make suitable for phonics. One other one that I will just end with recommending is, if you can find it online, Jolly Phonics also has some pretty decent stuff that will help you with this. All right, so thank you everyone, and I'll turn this over to the PA. Maybe you want to say a goodbye message or something here, but thanks everyone for listening.
お疲れ様。